Caught in the crossfire of childhood trauma, after confronting my boyfriend about my trust issues, I discovered he cheated after I opened up about my fears. I didn't want to hurt you, he sobbed, revealing his deeper abandonment issues. Can love flourish amidst such chaos? This is practically a small novel. I apologize in advance. I have been in a toxic 3-year relationship in the past, which has left me with significant trust issues that I am still working to overcome. When I entered my current 10-month relationship, I was still healing but thought I was ready for a healthy one. However, I quickly realized that my past baggage was affecting my present relationship. I found myself constantly checking my boyfriend's phone, sometimes snooping for hours and obsessively searching for signs of betrayal, even though there was no evidence. After some time, he told me that I needed to stop, as it was damaging both to him and to myself. That was when I recognized that I had a problem and began therapy to address my trust issues and self-sabotaging behavior. I am proud of how far I have come. My boyfriend has noticed and praised my progress, especially since he knew what I had gone through in my previous relationship. He and I took things slow when we first met. During the first 2 months after we connected on Hinge, we had no physical intimacy at all, not even a kiss, which helped build trust. I opened up to him about my past, explaining that I wanted to be with someone for the right reasons. Over time, he showed me that he cared for me for who I was, not just for my body, which was a refreshing change from my past experiences. Things were going great at first. I felt genuinely loved and safe for the first time, but I also had this nagging fear of getting hurt again. What we had seemed too good to be true, which I expressed to him. There was a day prior to my therapy when I felt so loved by him that I started crying, telling him how scared I was to get my heart broken again. Given how soon it was after my previous relationship, I did not believe I was healed enough to be in a healthy relationship. After hearing me say this, he began to cry and experienced a full-blown anxiety attack, the first of many that I would witness from him. At that point, he had already fallen in love with me, and the thought of me leaving terrified him. Over time, I began to notice signs of trauma in him as well. He struggled to open up about it, often becoming overwhelmed and having anxiety attacks when he attempted to do so. I felt in the dark for much of our relationship, unsure of how to help him. At the same time, I tried to encourage him to make some positive changes for himself, such as reducing alcohol consumption, stopping vaping, smoking less marijuana, prioritizing other activities over video games, and seeking therapy. However, although he agreed to change, he never followed through. It was all talk and no action, and the communication between us began to break down. At the end of October, we had been arguing a lot. Right before we celebrated our 6-month anniversary, we had a significant argument that was incredibly bad and ended with me saying, "If you want to break up, I understand." I had lied to him about how much time had passed between my previous relationship and when I met him. Saying those words to him, I did not know how much worse that would make the situation in his mind. He started crying harder and told me that breaking up was not even a thought in his mind, asking if that was what I wanted and if that was why I kept bringing it up. At the time, I did not know, but this argument, among other issues we were experiencing, would spark a downward spiral in our relationship. 2 weeks ago, we had another episode of nearly back-to-back fighting over a couple of days, and I gave in to the urge to look through his phone, even though I had worked hard to stop doing so and to trust him. I could not help myself, and I found evidence that he had been cheating on me, deleted messages that he forgot to clear from his iMessage trash, which I recovered. I confronted him, and after initially denying it, he admitted it after I pulled up the messages. The evidence I found only indicated the most recent encounter in early January. I asked him for more information, and he confessed to cheating on me with the same woman twice. This woman, who is 16 years older than him, works in the store right next to his job. They had sexual relations in her car, which was parked in the parking garage of his apartment building. Both incidents occurred, once a couple of days after our 6-month anniversary in October, and again a couple of days into the new year, after we had spent the holidays together with family. These occurred after we had been arguing continuously and had not been intimate for a while. He explained that he had been drinking heavily ever since our significant argument in October, where I had admitted to lying to him, which I mentioned earlier. I had noticed an increase in his drinking as well as more insomnia on the days that I spent the night, but whenever I brought it up, he told me not to worry, which I should have considering what it led to. They had hooked up twice before he knew me, when he first moved to the state and started his new job. He said he was not attracted to her in the slightest, but he was lonely, knew no one in the area, and gave in to her desperation for attention that she showed when she constantly visited him and flirted with him at work. She continued to do this even after we started dating and was aware that he had a girlfriend, but she did not care. In moments of weakness, after all the arguing we had done and with heavy drinking, his brain was unable to fight away the negative thoughts, and he succumbed to his demons and her temptation. There was no intimacy at all during their encounters. Each time was brief, and during the 2 times he hooked up with her while we were together, He wanted to detach himself from the reality of the situation and did not allow her into his apartment as he had before we started dating, restricting the encounters to her car, not even his. He told me he had no idea why he did it. He did not want to do it and never intended to, but he felt he had no control over his actions and was deeply disgusted with himself afterwards. The second time he cheated on me, he told her that it would never happen again, which she confirmed when I spoke with her. I also asked him if he would have ever told me had I not discovered the truth, and he said he did not know exactly when or how he would have conveyed the information, and that he probably would have needed to start talking to his therapist again either way to help him find the words. However, he stated he definitely would have told me before our 1-year anniversary because it was tearing him apart, and he could not bring such a heavy lie into another year of our relationship. I am not sure if that is entirely true. I know he probably believes it when he tells himself that, but honestly I am unsure if he would have. I could not bear the thought of holding such a secret for so long. I question how he was even able to enjoy any of the good moments we shared since he began cheating on me. I told him that it felt like all the time passed between his first act of infidelity and now felt like a lie. It felt fake. On January 3, I found a kitten and decided to keep it. It was our baby, and we started seriously discussing getting an apartment together so we could raise the kitten alongside his other 2 cats. It hurt so much to find out that he had cheated on me the night before that, on January 2. What followed on disclosure day was a legitimate emotional breakdown and anxiety attack during which he shared that he had severe abandonment issues stemming from his childhood. He tried to explain this trauma to me multiple times throughout our relationship, but every time he attempted to do so, he would break down and have an anxiety attack, as if he were physically unable to articulate the trauma. This explains why he reacted so strongly when I expressed my self-doubts about being ready for a relationship, and the panic and hurt he felt when I told him I understood if he wanted to break up. Finally, after 10 months in our relationship, many tears and numerous anxiety attacks, he was able to open up to me and be vulnerable. It is just unfortunate that it took such a betrayal for that to occur. His childhood has been marked by abandonment and feeling unwanted. He was brought into this world by accident, as neither of his parents wanted to care for him. His family did not pay much attention to him, and his long-term ex before me cheated on him and took his cat. Both of his parents were also serial cheaters, so he grew up believing that infidelity was a normal behavior for a long time, and all the people he loved in his life eventually abandoned him. As someone who also has mental health issues, I can understand how much trauma can alter thought processes. Both times he cheated on me were after his trauma was triggered by our arguments and decreased intimacy, leading him to sabotage our relationship by cheating. Prior to this, he had never cheated and always claimed he would never do so because he felt the pain caused by cheating when he experienced his parents' infidelity, as well as the pain from being cheated on by his ex. However, like me, he believed that our relationship and connection were amazing and too good to be true, and he was scared of the heartbreak that would ensue if he put his whole heart and effort into the relationship and did what he knew he had to do to be a good boyfriend. He claimed that he had intentionally not committed fully to being a good boyfriend, and doing the things I had asked and begged him for because he was afraid I would reject and abandon him at his best, thus protecting himself by only giving me minimal effort so that if I did leave him, it would hurt him less. He stated that due to his trauma and childhood, his mind convinced him that the only option after all our arguments was to self-sabotage and cheat on me, ruining the relationship by his own actions before I could end it myself, abandoning him. I have never been involved with anyone who had abandonment issues, so I have started to educate myself about it. I also realize that being in a relationship with someone who has deep-rooted abandonment issues can be challenging, and I need to seek advice on how to navigate this moving forward. Everything he has shared with me seems genuine and rooted in abandonment issues, and I have watched numerous videos about how their brains can warp things and lead them to make irrational choices. It seems that people with such issues almost always end up self-sabotaging in some manner, fearful of being hurt and disappointed by those they love who are supposed to care for them. Despite his betrayal, I love him and want to help him heal, but I also want to protect myself from being hurt again. My goal is to try to find a balance between supporting him in his healing journey while also maintaining my own emotional well-being in this situation. My boyfriend understands that he has issues and began attending therapy a couple of years ago, but stopped due to the expense and a lack of motivation to heal at the time. However, after cheating on me and realizing the pain he caused me, the person he claims to love most in the world in turn hurting him immensely, especially as someone who said they would never cheat after being cheated on in a previous relationship and never be like his father, who was a serial cheater, and cheated on both of his wives. He was extremely remorseful. The morning after the disclosure day, less than 12 hours after I confronted him, he was on the phone with his therapist and set up weekly sessions. In the 2 weeks since the day of disclosure, he has been making a genuine effort to improve and is showing up for me in ways he had not done before. It truly seems as if he is dedicated to healing himself to become a better partner, the one I deserve. He is practically a different person now. Although I know it has only been a short time and things could revert, he is now open with me, honest, vulnerable, much better at communication, and treating me far better. He is prioritizing more important things over his video games, and he has quit vaping and drinking, which he previously did multiple times a day every single day throughout our relationship. It is unfortunate that it took him cheating on me for this change to occur, but he claims this is the wake-up call he needed. Seeing how much pain I experienced caused him further distress and provided him with the motivation to heal his trauma and become a better person not just for me but for himself as well. By deciding to remain in our relationship and not end it, I have shown him that I would not leave, even after he did the worst thing he possibly could to me, which has helped him feel more secure in our relationship and motivated him to devote himself to true healing so that his trauma can be released and no longer hold power over him. We are both in personal therapy and are planning to start couples therapy together as well. I have also read that relationships that reconcile after infidelity often become stronger than before, and I can honestly envision that happening with us. He loves me even more for staying after everything, and I genuinely think I love him more too, although part of me still resents him for cheating and hurting me like this, because he is trusting me to be this vulnerable and to share with me something only his therapist and his parents know about. He did not even tell his long-term ex about this trauma. She tried to get him to do so, but he refused. I believe I was placed in his life to guide him toward healing, and he was put in mine to help open my heart more and to be forgiving and patient. Oddly enough, his situation has even helped me heal my relationship with my mother, which has been non-existent for nearly a decade. So in a complicated way, I feel somewhat grateful for this entire ordeal. Once we are both healed, our relationship will be far better than it was previously, and my relationship with my mother will improve as well. I have already forgiven him because I understand that he has been through a lot, and how difficult it can be to have no full control over one's brain and thought processes. However, this situation is very complicated because I have a challenging living situation. We were planning on getting a larger apartment than the one he currently lives in and moving in together after our 1-year anniversary in a couple of months. I go to his apartment almost every day and was practically already starting to move in, so we know we work well living together. Part of me does not want to move in due to what he did, but another part does because, as I mentioned, my living situation is a mess, and we just adopted a kitten the day before the day of disclosure. I know we need space apart so I can think clearly without being blinded by love. I need to ensure that I am making the right decision in staying with him, and the space will also give him time to demonstrate his growth. However, I do not want to leave our kitten with him because I do not want her to forget me while we take time apart. Yet I also do not want to take the kitten away from my boyfriend's other 2 cats, as the 3 of them just started getting along and playing together. If they are separated for a while, they may not get along in the future. My birthday and Valentine's Day are next month, both of which we have yet to celebrate together. His birthday is also in early April, and our 1-year anniversary is at the end of April. I am really torn and frustrated about my inability to decide what to do. I know we definitely need space from each other, but I do not want to sacrifice those important events to gain that clarity and miss out on moving in too. I know many of you think I am foolish and that I am young and that it was only a 10-month relationship and I should just move on. Yes, I agree with all those statements. However, I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason and there have been some positives that have emerged from this situation. I know love cannot exist without pain, forgiveness, or patience. I have a very forgiving heart and have not even considered revenge, despite how much he hurt me, and I do not plan to either. However, if this were ever to happen again, the best revenge I could seek would be to leave him for good. Everyone makes mistakes, and I choose to let go of the hurt instead of holding on to it. I know God would not want me to resent someone I love. Many men cheat in this world. What if I move on and the next man treats me even worse? Or what if I never discover it and it continues for years? I realize it may sound foolish, but I would rather he be caught cheating now, deal with the root cause, change and grow, and never repeat such behavior because he understands how much pain it caused me and him, than for him to cheat on me for the first time after we are married and have children, since that kind of pain would be far greater. However, I am not entirely naive, and if this occurs again or if I ever catch him in another instance, I am gone, because repeating the same mistake does not demonstrate growth at all. I know you think I do not respect myself, but I would not disrespect myself more than you believe I already am by staying with a repeat offender. I know there are so many other potential partners out there, and I can easily fall in love again and find a better man, but I genuinely believe he is remorseful for his mistakes and deserve him one more chance. If we are meant to be, he will learn from his errors and become the man I deserve. If not, God will show me. I believe he prompted me to look through his phone to uncover this truth so we could change for the better. But if God reveals this to me again, I will know it means I do not belong with him and I will move on. I have made my decision, I have forgiven, and I will trust his process for now. If anyone has any advice on being in a relationship with someone who has abandonment issues, please let me know, I would appreciate it. Summary: childhood trauma apparently caused my boyfriend, male, 22, to cheat on me, female, 21. I forgive him because I love him, and in a way I understand why he did it, and there were positive outcomes from this situation as well. However, I need advice on how to handle a relationship with someone who has abandonment issues. Story 2. After 7 years of love and trust, I woke up to discover my partner vanished, leaving me with anger and betrayal. I just got drunk, he said, refusing to acknowledge the truth. Now I'm torn between moving on and the urge to support him. How do I reclaim my life? This is going to be a lengthy post, but I genuinely believe it is an interesting story. It is incredibly painful at this moment, yet in the long run, I believe it will be much happier and more successful than I was during the 6 years we spent together. For some background, I am 35 years old and he is 43. We met while working on a large farm in Northern California where we collaborated for 9 months before becoming intimate. After the season ended, I relocated to live with him in Southern Oregon. I have felt more stable and content in this relationship than in any of the others I have experienced, which lasted between 1 and 6 years, and I am immensely proud of my progress after getting clean 7 years ago. We have worked and lived together throughout our entire relationship and have had very few arguments or issues. We both seemed content and happy. Perhaps after a turbulent life, I found happiness in complacency and routine. There were some intimacy issues we faced. As a survivor of abuse, I have worked on these matters, although we could have likely done better. However, that is no excuse for what transpired. We both work at a ski resort in Oregon. I am a lead bartender and he is a sous chef. We have been there for about 5 years now and we are very work-oriented. Our family includes 2 wonderful large dogs, along with most of my family living close by. He has a cousin and her family in California whom we have visited a few times. We live in a nice fifth-wheel trailer that my parents purchased for us, drive a newer Subaru that we bought together, and we're genuinely enjoying the life we built and the love we shared. Now let me take you back to a few weeks ago. I had been feeling a bit depressed and exhausted as we were both working full-time and even taking on overtime, so I decided to sleep in on our day off. I woke up when my now ex-partner came in and began getting dressed. He mentioned he was going to the hot tub at our RV park with 2 female coworkers. I had absolutely no problem with this. I had 100% trust in our relationship at that moment. Over the years, I had expressed my boundaries multiple times. If you want to sleep with other women, please just ask me first or be upfront and honest immediately afterward. I wanted to evaluate whether it would make our relationship uncomfortable, especially if I did not like them or if they worked with us. However, that conversation never happened, and as far as I know, he did not have any other affairs. Now, however, I am questioning everything. At around 1 p.m., I gave him a kiss, told him to say hi to the girls for me and that I would see him in a little while. I cleaned up a bit, ate some food, and around 6 p.m. I began to feel worried. There were no calls, no texts, just silence. This was certainly unusual. I kept reassuring myself that he was okay and that one of the girls had my number if something serious occurred. The ex-partner is over 6 feet tall and weighs approximately 300 pounds. He is not in the best shape anymore. He transitioned from hard labor on the farm when we first met to primarily eating whatever sounded good and being relatively inactive outside of work. Even when he had all his teeth pulled a few years ago, I still found him attractive, but I have always been concerned for his overall health and well-being. I continued telling myself that everything was fine and that maybe he had gone out to the bar after the hot tub without changing his clothes. Perhaps they were still in the hot tub for 5 hours. Yes, I could have called him, but he is a grown adult and I had never felt the need to monitor him. I completely trusted him for 7 straight years. I never even looked through his phone or felt the need to, even though we each had the other's login information and had expressed willingness to share it if desired. At some point, I dozed off in bed into an uneasy, restless nap until around 10:30 p.m. when I woke up startled. I realized the time, but there were no missed calls. I looked over into his empty side of the bed and instantly felt sick to my stomach, disgusted and filled with disdain. Something in the atmosphere felt wrong, and deep down, I knew he had been unfaithful. I felt an overwhelming amount of hurt and grief, trying to find excuses or alternatives in my mind for his behavior. I had been so clear on multiple occasions, just talk to me about it. It is not a huge deal, I am strong and can handle it. However, discussing it with me beforehand was crucial and he did not even a hint. My best guess is that he probably knew I would disapprove of him being involved with coworkers, which is unacceptable and unprofessional in any workplace, especially since they were directly under him and one was up for a promotion. I took some deep breaths, reminded myself I did not know what had happened until he got home, maintaining that trust washed my face, got a drink, fed our dogs, and went back to bed crying. At that moment, I should have called him, but the pain turned into anger and it was overwhelming, so I chose to stew for the next 6 hours. I could not change the situation now and decided to work on calming down and processing my emotions. About 20 to 30 minutes before I assumed he came home around 4:30 a.m., I fell asleep. This sleep was dark and deep, lasting until about 8 a.m. when I sat upright and noticed he was finally in his spot sleeping. The second thing I noticed was the smell. It was unpleasant, and my first thought was of a dirty box, which made me a little angry right away. I started gathering all my gear to go snowboarding when he attempted to say something to me that I did not hear, like, "Where are you going?" Although I did hear him say, "What are you mad at me now?" I was much snappier than I intended to be. 14 and a half hours without even a single text message to let me know you were okay and to inform me what you were doing. What do you think? With a very unapologetic tone, he replied, "Sorry, we got drunk." "Did you sleep with one of them?" Looking me in my angry eyes, he asserted, "No, we just got drunk." "Well, I am going snowboarding." With that, I exited the house within moments. I attempted to calm my hurt and anger. I had expected relief from his answer. Instead, it took me some time to settle my emotions. I think they just became repressed and shoved down as I pretended to be okay. In fact, I was so upset that when I told myself I should not go snowboarding that day after I parked, I went anyway and suffered the consequences on the first run. I received my fifth posterior right shoulder dislocation, the third time while snowboarding, the second time I had it set back into place on the slopes. It is suspected that I have a torn ligament and a torn tendon in my left thumb, leaving it painful and immovable. When I returned home from urgent care, he was lying in bed, which was unusual. He did not say anything to me and I did not say anything to him. It took 3 hours before I asked him to let the dogs out since I couldn't. He snapped at me, asking why not, and when I explained I had crashed and got hurt, his attitude shifted and he left the room. The next day at work, when people inquired about my injury, I casually remarked, "Don't ride angry." I divulged some of the events to a few friends, but when they asked if something had happened, I confidently replied no. Weeks went by and there was a strange atmosphere the whole time. For example, when I greeted one of the girls, she appeared scared when speaking to me, which seemed odd. Other things I noticed as time passed included conversations stopping when I walked in and looks that seemed to carry hidden meanings. I continued to maintain my faith in my spouse, making excuses for the situation. I did bring it up a few more times when I began questioning my lingering feelings. He gave the same responses as before, which provided me with a sense of security. He would not elaborate further on what had occurred that night, and though I asked, I did not press him too hard for answers. Fast forward to New Year's Eve. We attended a great show, shared a hotel room with friends, and celebrated. At the end of the night, I went for a walk, and one of the coworkers opened up to me about having seen pictures of his affair with the two girls and that they had been joking about the whole event quite openly at work. I was shocked but gave a nonchalant response, thinking maybe he said that while drunk to incite drama, hoping I might be receptive to intimacy. The nagging feeling that I already knew the truth made it difficult to brush aside. I opted to disregard the information, not wanting drama, and contemplated how to approach him when we returned home. When we got back to the hotel, I planned on taking a bath, but my spouse suggested we shower together, nudge, nudge, hint, hint. We had not been intimate since the incident, and part of me was tempted to try, hoping it would help reassure me that he was telling the truth. It did not. The experience was awkward and uncomfortable. After a short while, we stopped. I looked him in the eyes and directly asked again, "Did you sleep with either of them?" I received the same answer. However, this time I could see the lie in his eyes, and inside I shattered into a million pieces. We eventually went to sleep, but I could not rest. He slept peacefully. We had a strange and quiet breakfast the following morning, to the extent that our friends remarked how we all must be incredibly hungover. Later that night, upon returning home, I sat silently for an hour before asking him again. I initiated this after asking if I could access some photos on his phone and was about to start scrolling when he became defensive, exclaiming, "What are you doing? You do realize there are pictures from that night with them, don't you? People at work have seen them and even had the audacity to tell me the truth." He denied it, but the guilt and shame in his eyes were undeniable. Almost immediately, he wanted to know who had said it, and I retorted, "Not your business." I then retrieved my pillow and blanket from the bedroom and laid down on the couch, crying and seething. About an hour later, he got up to go to bed, and I followed him, saying that he needed to tell me the truth because this is not going away. Finally, he admitted that they all had sex. I felt an emotional floodgate open, thanked him for finally being honest, but pointed out that his choices have consequences, and my choice is to leave as we were finished. If he had been upfront and honest, we could have worked through the affair. He attempted to blame me for the lack of intimacy, and I used a term I had never used before, beginning with, You do not get to gaslight me on this. This is not my fault. We should have worked on our relationship together. I added that I would keep the car and he could take the trailer, which is in my name. I felt as though he simply gave up at that moment. I left with my dog and spent the night with my brother, venting and crying with two close friends and coworkers. They pointed out some of the shortcomings of our relationship and emphasized how much better I deserve moving forward. For instance, I had not received a birthday or holiday gift in several years, yet I always got him something even if it was small. He did make me one necklace just because once. He never bought me flowers, made romantic gestures, or made attempts to connect anymore. He frequently teased me when we were out with friends, which I know he considered playful banter. I was fortunate to have called my friends before diving too deep into the situation, and that they insisted on talking to me before I went to my mom's house, which is 2 hours away given my state. My brothers also left work early to support me emotionally and took the next night off to ensure I was okay and not making rash choices. I called out of work simply stating we had separated and needed a day off. The following day, I returned to the RV with my brother and a friend to gather my belongings, leaving some things in our shed and some smaller items we had no room for. He was at work that day. I also sent one angry text that said, "Forget you, you dumb fool," to one of the women involved. It contained no threats, just a straightforward acknowledgement that I now knew the truth. I received no response and did not send anything else. My brother held onto my phone to prevent me from sending angry texts to my ex-partner or anyone else during my emotional turmoil. I stayed with my brothers again and drank while many people came out to check on me and ensure I knew I had a robust support network. I felt blessed and grateful for this. Later that day, he texted me saying he was going to commit suicide, that it was what I wanted, and after I sent him the suicide hotline number, he replied, "No, I want you to know it is all your fault." This could have devastated me, and although he had threatened this before during fights, I took it seriously and reached out to our managers to check on him. They did so, and it seemed to have calmed him down. After this, I took all weapons and knives from the house, which involved another hour-long trip. After discussing the situation with others the following day, I learned he was under investigation because the woman he had slept with reported feeling uncomfortable working with him due to the circumstances. Both women are in their 30s, and I believe they were aware of their actions when they took those pictures, talked about it at work, and then approached human resources after everything came to light. I do not think he considered the consequences of his actions at the time, but that does not excuse them. He ended up losing his job that same day, an ironic twist of fate. I explained to my manager that I did not want him to be fired and had no intention of going to human resources. My plan was to leave the job, leave the trailer, and find what else is in my future. I still have my job and was granted a week off to process my emotions and decide what comes next. Regardless, I know this is a lengthy and detailed account, which may be letting it out online a bit. I have resumed seeing my therapist, signed up for online courses on processing emotions, trauma, grief, etc. I am looking forward to the future, but am realizing I have been extremely codependent over the past 6 years. I feel guilt about his predicament, constantly questioning what I did wrong, and am struggling to let him go. A part of me wants to return to him and work things out because I was stable and happy in the relationship. After I calmed down, we started texting again, and I remained cordial, supportive, and positive, while also stating that I can no longer trust him and may never be prepared to reconcile. I feel he has withdrawn, not expressing remorse, although he did say sorry, which feels pointless and insincere now. There has been no conversation about attempting to build a future together, but he seems quite depressed. I have asked him how he is doing through text once a day, ensuring he does not wish to hurt himself. I have also called his friends, asking if they are willing to check in with him, required his login information for accounts, discussed paying rent, and sent his old resume and contact information. I know this all seems insane. It has been genuinely difficult for me to distance myself from what we once shared. Honestly, I still love him deeply and want him to succeed and find happiness, but I recognize that I need to prioritize my well-being first and adjust to that change. Some of the advice I am seeking involves the RV. Everyone, except his best friend who supports my desire for fairness and an even split, insists I should give him a deadline to vacate and reclaim it. I truly owe him nothing and have done nothing wrong in this situation. However, it does not feel right to throw him out onto the street. He is a good person most of the time, and just because he made a foolish mistake does not make me want to be vindictive or wish him ill. Since he has never had a driver's license, only a permit, I cannot give him the car and will likely need to trade it for something more economical now that my financial situation will be tight. Why do I still treat him kindly, with respect, and remain okay without it being reciprocated? I mean, I am angry and hurt and I have said some mean things, but as time progresses, I aim to remain level-headed and optimistic. I do not see being unnecessarily cruel to my ex-partner, while being confident in my decision to leave and succeed as providing anything constructive. This perspective is unpopular among my friends and family, who advise me to let him fall and independently rise so he can learn a lesson. While I understand that viewpoint, I seek opinions. I am trying to figure out how to move forward and maintain a positive outlook while manifesting a beautiful, happy future for myself, one where I am not hindered by anyone but myself. My goal is to stay single for a year to remember my self-worth and discover what I want from life. I just don't know how yet. It feels daunting and a bit overwhelming. Any advice in this regard? I am simply looking for connections and keeping myself busy while navigating this. Thank you for taking the time to read my thoughts.